class. Welcome to our flipped classroom. The lesson we're going to talk about today is the writing process. You guys came to me as really good first grade writers, and now it's my job to make you a really good second grade writer. So the writing process is our focus today. There's 5 steps to it. Let's take a look at them. Here are the 5 main steps for the writing process. Step 1 is a pre-write. And we're going to talk about each of these steps in detail in just a minute. Step 2, we're going to work on your rough draft or your sloppy copy. Step 3 is revising. Step 4 is your final draft or your final edit. And then step 5, we publish your writing. So let's break these down into each of the steps. The first type of writing we're going to talk about is narrative. And I'll do different videos for the 2 other kinds of writing we're going to do this year, which is opinion writing and informative writing. But we're going to be doing narratives first, and let me show you what that is. Narrative writing is just telling a story, like you're the narrator. You're going to write about either an event or a series or group of events. And for a narrative, it really helps if you use some great words that are going to tell us the order that things happened. You'll want to use a variety of these words. The words that we're talking about are things like first, next, then, after, finally, words along those lines. And let's begin by talking about the first step in the writing process. Step 1 is your pre-write. And during the pre-write stage, we're going to be brainstorming. We're going to, as a class probably, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about all the ideas we have for our stories. And we're going to get them all down on one big sheet of paper. And then you're going to make up your own graphic organizer. And let's talk about what a graphic organizer would look like for a narrative story. So here's a graphic organizer that we might use for our pre-write. We would go to our graphic organizer after we've done some brainstorming. And this very first writing that we're going to do, we're just going to use a really simple graphic organizer with just really 4 parts. The first part is the title. Then we're just going to put down ideas about what happened at the beginning of the event, what happened in the middle of the event, and what happened at the end. You don't have to put a whole lot of details into this, just your best ideas and your best memories or recollections of what happened. Because the narratives that we do in 2nd grade are called personal narratives, which mean they're real stories of things that have actually happened to you. For our second narrative writing, we're going to do a little bit more of a detailed pre-write. You'll have your title, but then you're going to need to include a topic sentence. And when the time comes for our second narrative, we'll talk more about what that is. And then we go to our beginning, middle, and end. Just some outline and an idea, getting our ideas organized. Then we're going to need to put a conclusion sentence on it. So these are the basic graphic organizers, but they may look a little bit different. But these are just the main things that we need to get down before we can even begin our writing. So let's look at an example of what a pre-write might look like after we finished it. So the writing prompt that we would be working on is write about the best vacation you ever had. Now you guys know I just got back from New York, so of course I'm going to use that as an example. So the title would be My Trip to New York. And usually the beginning and the end are kind of short parts of it, and then the middle has lots of stuff to it. So in the beginning I would just write down, we took a plane, we went because it was my friend's wedding. The middle is all the stuff that happened in between. So there was the wedding, we walked on the Brooklyn Bridge, we saw a musical, we went for a bike ride, and we did a lot of other things, but it would make it very, very long if we put in all those details. So we're just going to put the most important parts, the highlights. And then in the end, we said goodbye, we flew home, we were sad to leave, but we were happy to be home. and then that would be all I would be putting in the pre-write for this narrative. Step 2 then would be our rough draft, and this is the sloppy copy. You can use guest spelling for your sloppy copy, that's just fine. You do want to use complete sentences, so the ideas that you put down in your graphic organizer now have to become complete sentences with the naming part and the action part, or a subject and a verb. You're going to need your title, and remember we talked about briefly a topic sentence, and we can talk more about that for our second writing. But this is where you're going to put in some details and some descriptions, as many as you can think of. And as we go on, you're going to need a conclusion sentence. So here's my rough draft, my sloppy copy, and I'm going to read it to you and see what you think. My trip to New York. Last week, my friends got married in New York, and my husband and I took an airplane to go to the wedding and see New York. First, we walked over the Brooklyn Bridge, then our friends got married, then we saw a musical. Next, we went on a bike ride. Finally, it was time to go home. We got back on the plane and flew home. We were sad to leave, but happy to be home. I made some mistakes. Can you see them? So I'm definitely going to be needing some help from a friend. So this is where the time comes for revising. Let's look at what revising means. So this brings us to step 3. Step 3 is revising our writing. And what revising is making our writing better, making it more interesting. So we're going to start out by working with a partner, and you'll read your partner's writing, and they'll read yours. You'll give at least one compliment, and you'll offer some ideas to improve your friend's writing. And some of the things that you're going to be looking for in your friend's writing and your own writing, and they'll be looking for in yours, is how you could add details or descriptions so that you can make your writing more interesting. And then you can do some editing. You will look for spelling and capitalization and punctuation through your writing and in your friend's writing. So let's take a look at what revising might look like. We're going to pretend that I sat down with a friend or with a partner, and we worked on revising each other's rough drafts. And they saw a lot of the same errors that you guys caught when I read you my rough draft the first time through. So let's take a look at some of the things that might happen while you're revising. You're probably going to find some errors in capitalization and spelling. You're going to find sentences that are really long. Here's a sentence that I had where I used the word "and" 3 times. So we took out one of those ands and chopped it into 2 sentences. We saw a place where we could make a sentence much more interesting. Instead of just saying we saw a musical, we saw a hilarious musical. And instead of saying we went on a bike ride, we went on a long bike ride along the Hudson River. More details make more interesting reading. And that's what we want, is for our readers to enjoy what we're writing. So that brings us to step 4, which is our final draft. For your final draft, you're going to make a few last-minute edits. You're going to then make sure you put in all the changes your partner and your teacher suggested. You want to make sure everything's as correct as you can possibly make it. You may want to illustrate, and for sure use your best printing or typing if we're going to be typing it. This is not the time that you want to make a lot of changes to the content of what you've written, just to the way it looks and making it as correct as you can. So here's my final draft, and you'll notice that all of the changes that needed to be made, the changes that I found during the revising process, or my partner or my teacher, they've all been made, and everything is in my nicest printing. and it's ready for the fifth and the final step. Step 5, publishing. We're going to publish our writing, which just means you're going to share it. So mostly what that's going to mean for us, we're going to put it on our writing wall. But sometimes it could mean we would put it up on our website, or if we typed it, you could put it up somewhere on your website or on the internet, maybe email it to somebody. We might read it to a class or a friend. We might read it to our family. But we're finally finished, and we have some wonderful writing, and you're well on your way to being a spectacular second grade writer.